He always says what others won't. Bill Maher has never been one to hold back, and when it comes to woke culture, he's completely over it. He's taken his criticism to the next level, calling out the absurdities of this ideology in multiple appearances, including a fiery exchange on The View. Needless to say, he didn't pull any punches today. We're breaking it all down, and trust me, you'll love what he said about the MSM. As always, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more videos just like this.
How do you define wokeness? Because I hear people use the term all the time, and it means something different to everybody.
Well, again, I think it's this collection of ideas that are not building on liberalism, but very often undoing it. I mean, 5 years ago, Abraham Lincoln was not a controversial figure among liberals. We liked him. Now they take his name off schools and tear down his statues. Really? Lincoln isn't good enough for you?
Defining the term woke these days feels like trying to crack the code to the universe. Everyone has a theory, but no one can seem to agree on what it actually means. It's the million-dollar question. You can ask 10 people what woke means and you'll probably get 10 wildly different answers, ranging from socially conscious to a buzzword that's lost all meaning. Now Bill's definition isn't that far off. I'd like to add to it that it's overly progressive activism with a layer of political correctness on top. It's a term that has far transcended its original meaning, and Sonny Hostin didn't like it when Bill used it on The View.
The term woke has been, in my view, co-opted by the right and weaponized and bastardized. And so I was surprised to hear you use the term because historically, as you know, because I think you're quite brilliant, that woke is a word used by the Black community to note that we must be aware of social injustices.
But words migrate.
Why is that a bad thing?
It's not a bad thing, and originally that was absolutely a great thing. Alert to injustice, who's not for that? But words do migrate. Now, I'll use any term you want. Okay. Because maybe that is a word that's triggering, and so let's not use that word. I don't want to call it the super far left, but don't tell me the left
or maybe the super far right.
Well, he's talking about the left. Well, then
okay, but we talked about that. I mean, I think we agree about the danger of the super far right, and I can't say it enough. I think they're the bigger threat. But don't tell me that the left hasn't changed.
Talk about whataboutism. This tactic is frustratingly common. Bring up the fact that the woke movement sometimes silences dissent, demands ideological conformity, or engages in cancel culture, and the immediate response is, but what about the far right? Sure, we can acknowledge that extremism exists on both ends of the spectrum, but does that mean we ignore one side just because the other exists? By that logic, no issue would ever get addressed because something worse is always happening elsewhere. Extremism in any form is damaging, and brushing it off by deflecting to the other side is lazy at best and dangerous at worst. At some point, you gotta take ownership of your own mess, which is exactly what Bill did in one of his monologues.
Let's get this straight. It's not me who's changed. It's the left, who is now made up of a small contingent who've gone mental and a large contingent who refuse to call them out for it. But I will. That's why I'm a hero at Fox these days. People sometimes say to me, you didn't used to make fun of the left as much. Yeah, because they didn't give me so much to work with. The oath of office I took was to comedy. And if you do goofy wherever you are on the spectrum, I'm going to make fun of you because that's where the gold is. And the fact that they are laughing at it should tell you something. It rings true.
That's absolutely right. The Democrats have gone so far left that centrists are being regarded as right-wingers nowadays. That happens to me a lot. Seriously, if you suggest something as reasonable as maybe we shouldn't cancel people for tweets from 2012, you're suddenly grouped in with conspiracy theorists. The irony is that a lot of these so-called right-wing centrists are the same people who voted for Democrats throughout the years. They haven't changed, but the goalposts have. Take, for example, Elon Musk or Joe Rogan. They were so fed up with the woke narrative that they publicly endorsed Trump for the past elections, and that's pretty understandable because when questioning extreme policies or expressing nuanced opinions gets you branded as a bigot or fascist, it's no wonder people are jumping off the ideological ship. Bill also noticed another thing that changed, and he made a really interesting point.
But I find that oftentimes when I'm watching the news, I'm only getting portions. But do you find that the view that we're being shown seems to be meant to guide us into thinking about people one way, when in fact it may be a much bigger conversation?
Oh, of course. I mean, the media is always going to just chase what is interesting to watch. I mean, I used to be able to watch the nightly news, for example. I can't do it. And it's narrative over truth. You know, I mean, it's not like when I hear people talk on either side of it, I always think they're lying. They're just telling me half of it.
Yeah.
And I never trust them anywhere until I check out the other half.
Yeah.
And it's tedious.
Yeah.
Yep, I'd even argue that the MSM is causing the extremes we're seeing in society today, since most media outlets have abandoned neutrality and facts in favor of pushing a certain ideological narrative. That's why they've become a bunch of echo chambers which reinforce their audience's pre-existing belief. But you know what? You can count on us for fair and independent coverage, so drop a like and subscribe to the channel because we'll never shy away from calling it as it is. What's even worse is that these media companies focus on sensationalizing every news story, with the main goal being to get as many clicks as possible.
It'll be interesting to see if Bill Maher is recruited to run for the presidency.
Now, some people think this means I've changed. I assure you, I have not. I have many flaws, but you can't accuse me of maturing. When normal people read that San Francisco has basically legalized shoplifting, they think Democrats have gone nuts. They think, you know, that Ted Cruz guy seems like a real stiff. But at least he believes in the concept of shopping with money.
Listen, free speech is the basis of any functional society, and I'm all here for expressing their opinions. But let's be real, there's something fundamentally absurd about certain people who act like they're experts on literally everything. You know the type, they'll weigh in on foreign policy in the morning, tell you how to fix the economy by lunch, by the end of the day critiquing NASA's space program as if they've built rockets in their garage. It's exhausting. What's even funnier is how confidently they'll sprout nonsense. This type just seems to be particularly widespread in woke culture, and it's honestly sad the way they've managed to affect our society to the span of a decade.
You know, 5-10 years ago, bedrock liberalism was we are striving to be a colorblind society where we don't see race. Of course, we see it, but it doesn't matter. That's not what woke is. Woke is something very different. It's identity politics. We see it all the time. It's always the most important thing. I don't think that's liberalism. I mean, I could mention so many issues like that.
Over the past decade, such norms have seeped into nearly every facet of our lives and changed how we interact socially. Suddenly, every word is scrutinized, every joke analyzed, and every opinion weighed against and ever-changing woke standards. It's been a roller coaster of virtue signaling, cancel culture, and moral grandstanding, but the good news is common sense seems to be creeping back in and more people are reaching their breaking point, and that's a good thing. It's a reminder that progress doesn't have to come at the expense of reason, and maybe, just maybe, we're starting to figure it out. But I'd love to know your thoughts here, so let's get the conversation rolling in the comments down below. By the way, if you want your friends to be as informed as you are, please share the video with them. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.